Now we're recording. Okay, thanks, Amy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is the Beacon Hill Council Community Meeting. It's June 6, 2023. My name is Maria Batiola. I chair the council, and I'm going to give you a bunch of updates. The first one is a congratulations to Noji Gardens local organizing. That is the Noji Gardens Association President Tiffany Burks, Amijah Smith, and Alice Park. So what's been as background, Noji Gardens is a development that the SDOT, Seattle Department of Transportation, wanted to put an exit lane, which means they have to cut about 100 trees to get that done. So the community has been organizing, and we as Beacon Hill Council have been lifting up their voices and writing letters. They had a walking tour with the SDOT director, Greg Spots, and he turned around and asked his group to design something different so that the trees won't be cut. They're still in progress, and they sent me a copy of an email that they can't just say, they're not going to cut trees yet, because what SDOT has done is ask the Department of Construction and Permitting to ask the applicant to provide a wetland environmental critical area report. And then that will help make the case that these trees are necessary to be kept. They're waiting for the applicant to provide the report, SDOT's direction, and SDCI, the Department of Construction and Inspection, are both on board, and they direct the SDOT. So just to let you know, when this was on the agenda, I received quite a number of questions because it's not signed, sealed, and delivered yet. It's a redirection. We need to give them a kudos. I mean, let's give them a hand. That's good work. So we're able to really help preserve that. And I'm just gonna ask Andrew. There's also progress over on the 17th and Walker 2 lots. Sounds like you guys were able to influence slowing down the development, or having the permitting be stuck for a while. I can't hear you. I know you're talking.
Yeah, sorry about that. So by the way, can you tell me, where's the Noji Gardens location exactly? You said it's by an off ramp. Where do you have those cross streets?
I can give that to you at another time, but basically it's
okay.
On the southeast side of Beacon Hill on MLK.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. That's great news. So to be honest, I've been, I sent some emails to various groups and to the parks to let them know about the situation. Parks, and I have, as the last I know, and this is going back a few months ago, Parks was very interested in this site. And by the way, little background. So you heard me go on my rant about Parks. I live near a development, a proposed development at 17th and College, 17th and Walker, I'm sorry. And there's a whole block that's only has one house and a lot of trees and a lot of open space. And it would really be great if that could be preserved for parkland and open space for the neighborhood, because we don't have it here. So in case you're listening, Mr. Edwards, I'd appreciate the city getting involved in this. Anyways, we did contact Parks about this. They sounded very interested in it. Apparently they made some attempts to contact the current owner, which is a developer. And apparently the developer was not willing to sell at a price that the city could justify paying at the time. This is going back a few months ago. I don't know, and I haven't heard from them since then. I've been overwhelmed with a lot of stuff myself. I will say that, so things may have changed. Maybe the market has changed enough that the developer would be interested. I don't know. But even so, I really wish the city, and if there's a way for the neighborhood to get involved into either raising money, getting nonprofits involved, or getting some sort of like Seattle Parks Foundation involved, or doing their own fundraisers, I'm sure a lot of neighbors here would be willing to contribute to the acquisition of a park for this neighborhood and the growing neighborhood. I think that'd be great. I'm not the person to organize that. I that's not my skill set. But you know, I know a lot of people who really care a lot about this and would be willing to contribute. So
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. We have more discussion to do on this. Part of what we're organizing at Beacon Hill Council is an environmental justice task force on trees, because we are a tree desert. And anyway, I'm just gonna follow the reporting so I don't miss anything, okay? The next item is an invitation to the anti-displacement presentation. Beacon Hill Council, Beacon Arts, and Beacon Business Alliance did a partnership and applied for an anti-displacement grant with the Equitable Development Initiative, City of Seattle. So we got a grant and we did a survey to neighbors and say, you know, if you could build 25 units, how many bedrooms would that be? And what would you charge for rent? And it was remarkable. Overwhelmingly, people were wanting to build for families, not just a single room or studios, but 2, 3, 4 units on up. And they all had below market costs. So part of the grant is to give that to the Seattle Chinatown International District Public Development Authority, and they created what is called the pro forma, a vision of what such a building that has low-cost spaces for arts and culture, business, and housing would look like. So we now have that, and we're going to share it publicly. So it'll be at the station. We hope you can come. 6 o'clock social time, 6:30 to 7:30 is the presentation. And Louise said we can have the place as long as we want, so beyond 8 o'clock social time. And I'm also in touch with Vanishing Seattle. They would like to be able to have the community see one of the films they did. They just finished it. They launched it at the Northwest Folklife, and that's the portion on Vanishing Seattle, Queer the Land. So we're probably going to integrate that. So there's 2 ways to join the meeting. One is in person, and it has a cap. Up to 80 people can come, and then by Zoom. So we're going to do a hybrid. And I hope you guys come, because this is going to relate to the housing levy later on. 2/3 of the housing levy money will be for extremely low income, which ties in really nicely with the vision that neighbors have on what kind of housing and low cost art and business spaces they want for their, so people can stay in place. And with that, I'm just going to check around and see if there's any questions. And if not, I'm going to move to the Seattle Tree Ordinance legislative update.
I do have a question I put in the chat. I was just wondering about what you were just talking about. Is it posted on the council website?
The plan,
Mm-hmm.
the Red Apple plan, no, not yet.
Oh,
No,
okay.
because we want to launch it, and this is going to be really interesting because Beacon Hill Council made a commitment to be able to have the issue be presented, but we don't have that kind of capacity to be able to actually move it towards development. So my hope is that we're going to invite people who are local Beacon Hill developers who actually do low income development and get them interested in the plan, and then we can share the plans with them. But definitely we're going to put it on the website. And Tiffany, let us know if you're interested or how you want to help navigate connecting this plan with other people. We did a lot of work
Yeah.
to be able to have substance behind it. The debate right now that's difficult is the average median income, because Seattle income is so high, it shows false for those who really truly are on the low income end.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
that's why we did this kind of inquiry, because we figured neighbors would know what their families and neighbors would need.
For the thing that you were talking about, the hybrid gathering, is that also posted on your council website?
It's not in there yet, but it's in the the agenda that was sent out. The
Okay,
link
I can
is
check
in there.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But you're right. We still need to do promo probably next week because the event is on the 27th. So just trying to clear the deck because we've been doing a lot of big chunks of work. So the next item is the Seattle Tree Ordinance Legislative Update. This is a very difficult ordinance. It's highly debated, and we do a lot of conversation with other tree advocates like the Urban Forestry Commission, Tree Pack, the last 6,000 trees, which also is connected with Plant Amnesty. I'm missing about 3 more groups within that conversation and collaboration. And we are coming at it from different angles. For the traditional tree preservationists and protectionists, they want the rules to be more friendly to smaller trees to be able to retain it, as well as have stricter rules for large trees to be retained. The angle we came in because of our community needs is based on climate resiliency and on inequitable tree canopy. So the Seattle Comp Plan that is in place calls for 30% tree canopy. The city of Seattle lost a lot of trees, and the fastest loss was in our district, District 2. So what we were able to do is the amendments we sent in basically was to have the ordinance include in the findings, which is like the introduction to the whole ordinance, to have it recognized that it is indeed to increase housing, to protect trees, and provide climate resiliency. And then we were able to have the data that came from the City Office of Sustainability and Environment about the 30% goal, how much we're losing trees, and the tree inequity in the beginning of the ordinance. But beyond that, we didn't get, we wanted a tree equity plan and implementation. They only gave us the plan in the tree ordinance, but not the implementation of it. And so with all of that and all of the other tree protection amendments that are necessary, and what we're going to do is we're going to post the Urban Forestry Commission letter that they sent to council after the tree ordinance passed to say what other work needs to be done within it. What we did is we turned around and sent in an email as Beacon Hill Council asking to have a study group be established so that we can get all of those things that are necessary to have stronger tree protections, to have that study be done and submitted to council next year by February. One of the key political pieces here is that 4 of the 7 district council members will not be running. So there's a good chance we're going to have a really different kind of a council. We don't know what, because the communities are going to work on getting somebody who reflects their different values. So that's the next step. I've been in conversation with Tammy's staff because they really were pivotal in getting those amendments, the equity and climate amendments for us. And then the other thing is I've sent copies of our letters to the Green New Deal Oversight Board, because even though there's a statement about climate, there's not an active programming or an active statement about how they're going to help communities be resilient with climate events like, extreme heat, the smoke when we get it from other forest fires, how that can also filtrate. And for us in Beacon Hill, because we have a very large amount of air pollution from roads, from aircraft and oil and gas heated homes, we need those trees to sequester the carbon. So it functions at many different levels. Aside from the makes you happy, kids can play, aside from all of those wonderful mental health advantages. So I'm just going to pause and see if you guys have any questions. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. There's it's the issue with the Washington New Law on Airport Study Group. This is part of our air and noise pollution issues. We are now part of a larger coalition called CTAC Airport Community Coalition for Justice, and there are 6 organizing groups within that. There was a CAC, Commercial Airport Coordinating Commission, that was supposed to identify 9 sites and then bring it down to 3 sites, then bring it down to 1 site for a new airport, because the demand for air travel and cargo is really increased quite a bit, and the projections are that it's still even higher. And so the 3 sites that are considered, 2 in Pierce County, 1 in Thurston, none of those counties wanted the sites. So the CAC won't be able to report to the legislature. So that what the legislature did is basically kill that entity. And they put a new study group together to address the increasing service needs for aviation. And unfortunately, they only want the study group to look at expanding an airport or siting a new airport. And what that means for us, because we're already experiencing air and noise pollution, and it's not just us, there's close to 500,000 people, including the cities around the SeaTac airport, as well as underneath the flight paths. What that does is it ensures that we're the pollution on us is going to just be increasing. If they say expand the airport, it'll increase. If they say build a new airport, it takes 20 years to build a new airport. So the pollution is still going to be increasing on us. So what that means is that there's an opportunity for Beacon Hill Council to write to the legislators, as well as use the HEAL Act to say, this is a significant agency action that the Department of Transportation at the state level is going to implement, and they need to do an environmental justice assessment for it. The simpler way is to get our legislators to amend that law to include looking at transportation capacity for roads, for rail, and water, so that some of the air cargo and air travel might be able to be offloaded so that they can, the people can travel using buses or hyperlink trails or whatever, rails or whatever needs to be. So I'm just going to pause and see if you guys have any questions on that. That's a big item for us. Okay. Well, not hearing any. I got done early. It's 7:03. And I think, Deirdre, we have the housing levy on the agenda.
Right, but they were not expecting to join till 7:20.
Oh, okay.
So to keep us on, I think there might be, let's talk a little bit more about the issue about the airport study group, because it's a lot of information, and it took me a long time to even wrap my head around it and know what questions to ask. So Maria, when you were saying that we want community residents to contact their legislators to amend the law to increase multimodal transportation, did I get that right? And if not, can you explain it a little bit more?
We as Beacon Hill Council can write to our legislators to ask them to amend. So we don't necessarily need the residents, because if we do that, we need to mobilize really big and strong. But I think that could be a very doable thing. What I'm trying to do is get attention to this issue using the state HEAL Act. The HEAL Act is Healthy Environment for All. And it requires, there's a set of state departments, transportation and commerce, ecology, health, and I'm missing 3 more, that whenever they do what they call a significant agency action, meaning they're going to start a new program or they're going to start a new grant, but it doesn't include when a new law is passed, that it should have an equity lens, an environmental justice lens put on it. So that's right now, through the Beacon Hill Council, I circulated a public comment, because once we get that public comment in, then the next letter becomes an attachment to request our legislators to amend the new law regarding the airport study group.
Thank you. Any questions about that before we move on? All right. We have a special guest talking about the housing levy, Stephanie Velasco and Nathan Antonio. And I will make you co-hosts so you can share your screens.
Great, thank you. It looks like I have the ability to share my screen, so we should be set. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Velasco. I work at the City of Seattle in the Office of Housing. I am the communications manager for the Seattle Housing Levy, and I'm joined here by my colleague Nathan, who I'll let him introduce himself to.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nathan Antonio. I'm a planning and development analyst here with the Office of Housing. I've actually been working almost exclusively on the levy since I started at the office late last year.
And we are here to talk to you a little bit. I'll start out our presentation and pull it up here in just a moment. We'll share a little bit about what the Office of Housing does, and then talk a little bit about the housing levy that's being considered by City Council right now. We will keep an eye on the chat if there are questions, and please, if you would like to raise your hand to ask a question. We'll try to answer mostly clarifying questions as we're going through our presentation, just to make sure we get through our content, and then we'll have a little bit of time, I think, at the end of our presentation for some additional questions. So we'll keep an eye out as we're going through. And otherwise, let me go ahead and bring up our presentation. All right. Okay, there we go. So thank you again for having us here today. We are going to be talking first about the Seattle Office of Housing. Our department within the City of Seattle Office of Housing, we work to build and preserve affordable housing so that people of all incomes can live in our city. And so the main ways that we do that are through making investments, through local fund sources like the housing levy, which we'll hear a little bit more about later, mandatory housing affordability, or MHA, so payment amounts that come from that. We can talk more about that if people are interested, and Jumpstart, the payroll expense tax. Those are the three sort of primary fund sources that we use to work with partners such as nonprofit housing providers, private developers, and other public agencies to make that happen. So some of the organizations that we partner with regularly, or that we are providing funds to provide affordable housing that you may be familiar with, are El Centro de la Raza, Bellwether Housing, Community Roots Housing, Plymouth Housing, DESC. The picture here is from the opening for Village Gardens, which is an affordable homeownership development in kind of, I guess, the Central District-ish, Lesha kind of, that by Homestead Community Land Trust. So we work again to help fund these organizations to build both affordable rental housing and affordable homeownership opportunities. Just one thing to mention here is that we are not the Seattle Housing Authority, though we do work closely, coordinate closely with the Seattle Housing Authority. We're also not the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, though again, we do work in close collaboration with both of those other public agencies. So that is who we are. And then the Seattle Housing Levy is a voter-approved property tax that it typically spans 7 years. The last housing levy was approved in 2016, so it'll be up for, will be expiring at the end of 2023. And housing levy dollars work with the other local funds that I mentioned, so MHA and Jumpstart, to help us address needs across the entire affordable housing ecosystem. So from kind of permanent supportive housing, if you're familiar with that term, serving people at the lowest incomes, often people who are who have experienced chronic homelessness and have other supportive services needs, up to housing that can is affordable to working people and their families, and up to other homeownership opportunities like the one that's pictured here and the one on the last slide. This one is Copper Pines, is a very new affordable homeownership development by Habitat for Humanity in North Seattle, Loyal Heights. And the housing levy is a proven tool. We've had the housing levy for 40 years, thanks to Seattle voters. The first housing levy was approved by Seattle voters in 1986. And since then, Seattle voters have come together and approved 5 housing levies. Because of those 40 years of investment, and you can see on the map here, the locations of rental housing, particularly that has received support from housing levy funds in the orange dots, and then also those green squares. Some of those have also received housing levy funds. The green squares are for sale homes, or permanently affordable for sale homes, I should say. So thanks to all of these 40 years or 4 decades of housing levy investments, an estimated 16,000 people are living in safe, healthy homes that they can afford throughout the city. And you can see, again, the map shows pretty sort of widespread across the whole city. And then again, when we're talking about the housing levy as a proven tool, every single housing levy has met or exceeded its goals. And we are on track to do the same thing with the 2016 housing levy. So this comes from our annual report as of 2022, and shows that we have already exceeded our goals for rental housing production and preservation, as well as homeownership. And we are well on track to meet our other goals around households that are assisted through our homelessness prevention and housing stability services, as well as our operating and maintenance program. So it's really we have a great track record in terms of our office and the City of Seattle's use of housing levy funds. And so as we are thinking about the 2023 housing levy that has been proposed by the mayor and is being considered now by City Council, we have 3 sort of principles that came up through our year-long, or actually over a year-long, stakeholder engagement process. And the 3 principles are as follows. The first is that the housing levy should grow to respond to increased housing costs, the growing needs of our community, and meet the demands of this moment. So we know that there is a great need for affordable housing, and that need for affordable housing will continue to grow. I think it's clear to probably everyone on this call, one, just that housing costs have increased significantly, whether you're a renter or someone who is looking to purchase a home in Seattle. The cost of housing has increased over the past 10, 15, 20 years. And we're also seeing greater numbers of people who are experiencing homelessness and housing instability. So that first principle there is that the housing levy needs to grow to respond to those growing needs. The second principle here is that the housing levy should continue to deliver diverse, affordable housing options while prioritizing households at the lowest incomes with the highest needs. So what we talk about, or what we mean when we say diverse, affordable housing options, is we're really talking about housing both a diversity across the city in terms of different locations, as well as homes that are affordable to incomes at different levels. So whether, again, it's that permanent supportive housing that's supporting people who are coming out of homelessness and who may need some additional supportive services in order to be successful in that housing, or families who are working and just not able to afford market rate housing, up to families who may be looking to purchase a home for the first time, but given the incomes that they have and the housing prices for sale homes that are available in Seattle, may just not be able to purchase without assistance. And so we do make sure that the housing levy provides that kind of wide, diverse housing options across the city, while also making sure that we're prioritizing households that are at those lowest incomes. So households that are making 30% of area median income or below are really the priority of the housing levy. And the last principle here is that the housing levy should continue to support buildings, as well as the people who work hard to make those buildings into safe, healthy homes. So I think the charts I showed you a couple slides back about the Seattle Housing Levy meeting or exceeding all of its goals. In the past 5 housing levies, those goals have all been related to supporting buildings. So whether it's creating new affordable housing developments or preserving existing affordable housing, we've really worked hard to make sure that those buildings are long lasting. So 50 plus years, and even more than that for many of the investments we make. But what we have found over the past couple years, and what we have learned from talking to housing providers, is that they are facing challenges in terms of recruiting and retaining their workforce. So the people who really work day in, day out with residents, and who have really tough but critical jobs to help support residents in our affordable housing buildings. These are the people who we need to be supporting through a workforce stabilization program, which is something new to this housing levy, and we'll hear a little bit more about that from Nathan. So those are the 3 principles that really informed the housing levy proposal that the mayor transmitted to council at the end of May, and that city council has been, at the end of March, and that city council has been considering in committee since April. And then one more thing to mention here is that we want to make sure that people are aware that given a state law in King County, you are able to access property tax exemptions or deferrals if you meet certain qualifications. So older adults, people with disabilities, and disabled veterans who meet certain income qualifications may be able to access property tax exemption. So it would include the housing levy as well. And so if you would like more information about that, we have a website and phone number here on this slide. Okay, and from there, I will go ahead and hand it off to Nathan unless there are any questions. Oh, I don't see any. Okay,
Great.
Nathan.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. All right, so once again, I'm Nathan Antonio. I'm an analyst working on the levy here at the Office of Housing, and I'm going to go into a little more detail about the proposal that's being discussed right now at Council, including amounts and what the programs do and what we're hoping to achieve with the levy as proposed. Go ahead, Stephanie.
I see one chat for a quick question from Andrew.
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you want to go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, sorry, I was kind of slow to respond there. And this might be something that you covered. You mentioned 16,000 people were over the past 40 years have been housed?
It's thanks
Currently?
to, yeah, it's currently, that's right.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the best estimate that we have at this time. 16,000 people are in homes, but that's, you know,
Yeah.
we know that given the number of years that many of these affordable housing buildings that have been supported by the housing levy have been available, that many thousands more
Yeah, of course.
household people and households have been able to live in these homes. But
Okay,
yes.
so currently there's about 16,000, I guess. So is it, well, maybe like half that many units, about 8,000 units that were created or so?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
So about 11,000.
11,000 units.
Mhm.
I'm just curious. I'm guessing the demand right now is easily at least that. Like there's probably 10,000 people who need homes right now.
Yeah, the number that we have, I guess, let's just saying at this point in time, and actually maybe this is a couple years old at this point, is 30,000 homes that would be needed to be affordable and available to people at sort of a low income households. And then, in addition to that, and this was something I alluded to in the principles, that number will continue to grow.
Yeah.
We anticipate that there will be a continued growth in terms of the need for affordable housing.
Okay, yeah. So I'm guessing the scope of the levies will have to scale up pretty rapidly compared to what has happened over the past 40 years, I guess. But anyway, I'll just stop right there.
No, it's a great question. And happy to keep talking about it once you see the numbers that
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually brought a somewhat simplified version of this presentation. We have some others that speak to need more. I almost wish we had some of those slides, but we can address some of that in questions as we go here. Go ahead, Stephanie. So this is just a very high level summary of the proposed levy, of the mayor's proposed levy right now. So we're looking at 970 million over the 7-year period of the levy, which would run from 2024 through 2030. So that works out to a tax rate of 45 cents per $1,000 of assessed value on the home. And for a median value home, that would be about $855,000. That would work out to about $383 a year. On the right, you can see kind of the breakdown of how those funds will be distributed or would be distributed through those programs. And like I said, I will explain more about the programs themselves as we go here. But as you can see really obviously here, most of the funds, 78%, are going to be or would be directed towards a rental production and preservation. That's just kind of the most bang for your buck that you get when you're trying to produce permanently affordable homes, is in the rental sector. Also, the population of folks in Seattle is now majority renter, and renters tend to have lower incomes than homeowners. So we're really just kind of focusing the resources where we think they are most needed. But with that said, as you can see, home ownership takes up about 6% of what we're planning on with this proposal. And that's actually the single largest increase over the past levy to any of these individual programs. It's almost a four times increase, whereas the others are about 3 to 2.5 times an increase. So that 6%, that works out to about $51 million. And then operating maintenance and services is actually the second largest program bucket here. That's 13% of the total. That's about kind of supporting the operations of buildings. Again, I'll talk more in detail about that as we go. And then prevention, that refers to homelessness prevention. We're looking at about 3% of the total over the 7 years to serve those programs. Go ahead, Stephanie. All right, so now I'll talk in a little more detail about each one of these program buckets. So rental production and preservation refers to both the new construction of buildings to be permanently affordable rental homes, as well as the acquisition of buildings that are not necessarily currently affordable rental buildings that people can buy. People can apply to us for funding to support their purchasing them so that they become permanently affordable. And then preservation, we could also call reinvestment. That piece refers to funds that would go out to help conduct major repairs or upgrades or capital improvements that are necessary in order to keep the building functioning as an affordable rental building. And when people come to us and ask for that kind of support, we actually make them extend the period of time over which they would need to provide that service through the structure. So whenever people come in and they get funding from us to do either new construction or acquisition for rental, they are obliged then to agree to do that with the building for 50 years or more in some cases. And then just kind of a little tweak on that, when they come in for preservation, they have to extend. And those preservation funds, they generally go towards buildings that are already permanently affordable in our portfolio, so to speak. So as you can see, with the 707 million over the 7 years, we're looking at about 2,800 new or acquired structures and support for reinvestment to 635 units. Go ahead, Stephanie. All right, we're going to take a little aside here on this program. You may have noticed a little asterisk at the bottom of the summary slide. The short-term acquisition loan program, emphasis on short-term, is kind of a fun one for me. What happens is sometimes we collect more money than we actually can plan on getting out the door in a given year. And when that happens, we try to do whatever we can to make the most of those funds. So the short-term acquisition loan program, which is actually called the Acquisition and Opportunity Loan Program in the legislation that's working its way through council. These are funds that developers can come to us and request in order to very quickly acquire structure that just went on the market that they would like to turn into affordable housing, or land that they would like to develop into permanently affordable housing. And the reason why we say short-term is because our normal process of issuing funds for permanent support is long. It's usually on a yearly cycle. Through this shorter term program, people can actually just give our capital investment team a call and see if they can work it out. We still obviously vet the deal that they're trying to do to make sure that, yeah, it does actually seem like this will work out in the long term, because we don't just do it for any reason. They actually have to also enter into an agreement, even with these short-term funds, that they will provide affordable housing on the property, you know, for all, however they can, for a fairly long period of time, even though the loans themselves we get back in 5 years. So at any given time, we can have $30 million that will eventually go towards other programs, out-loaned temporarily for these short-term purposes. And it really is very helpful to the primarily nonprofit affordable housing developers that we work with. You know, for-profit developers, oftentimes they have easy credit they can access, or just lots of cash sitting around that they can throw at opportunities that pop up like this. But our nonprofit folks, they don't have that. So we're able to sort of fill some of that gap, that we can kind of play that role for them to help them kind of snatch up good opportunities as they arise. All right. Now, this next program here, operating maintenance and services, this is all about supporting the operations of the buildings that we fund, as well as the staff. And it's also where a lot of the money that is temporarily loaned out for that acquisition program I was talking about comes from, and I'll explain why. So we actually write contracts. We actually write 20-year contracts for operating and maintenance services support. Meanwhile, the levy itself, the collections come in over 7 years. So what that means is that, especially after a year or two, we end up with a fair amount of collected money that we know is going to go out for operating support at some point. But in the meantime, it's just it's sitting there. You know, we're investing it and trying to make interest income off of it. But one of the other purposes that we will do with that is we will loan it out short term for that acquisition program. So that's how we manage to do that. But now, just focusing more on the operating maintenance and services program. This refers, these funds, they can pay for, you know, repairs, just bills, even insurance, you know, just all the things that people need, that providers need to keep the building in operation, which is particularly important for those buildings that serve folks with the lowest incomes, that 0 to 30% area median income bracket. A lot of times, you know, these folks, they cannot pay a market rate rent. Obviously, that's why we're here. And the rents that they can pay do not cover all of the costs of operating the building. So that's what these funds are for. And we're not alone in doing this. We're really not alone in any of this work. So in addition to the Office of Housing providing this operating maintenance and services support, there's also county, state, and federal partners who also come in to help bolster these providers and make sure that they can continue to offer these affordable homes for the long term. Kind of new this year in the operating maintenance and services program is you can see the lower box there, workforce stabilization. As Stephanie alluded to, we did some work with our providers over the last year or so, and we actually found that oftentimes they had about 20% of their positions in these buildings open at a given time. Now, you know, if a lot of you, I'm sure, can just imagine how that would work out at most office places if you had 1/5 of your staff unstaffed at any given time. It creates risks to the rest of the staff, it overburdens the rest of the staff, and it also means that the building is not necessarily going to be optimally utilized, because it's hard to maintain a building and make sure that units are getting leased up when you just don't have all the people that you're supposed to have. So what we're hoping to accomplish with this new workforce stabilization element of the program is to bolster wages and provide other supports that will help our providers attract and very critically retain a workforce, and also recognizing that the folks who do these jobs are generally really not being paid in accordance with how difficult the work is. We found that a lot of the folks who work these jobs are paid less than most baristas or even the people who work at Dick's. And that's all due respect to those folks, but you know, the work in these buildings can be very difficult, particularly in permanent supportive housing. We're talking about clients who have, you know, chronic homelessness, major disabilities, health conditions, and things like that, and they need a lot of support. It can be very stressful and taxing, and yeah, we're just hoping that by doing some new things, we'll be able to support that workforce and improve the overall operations of these buildings. All right, next we have home ownership. Stephanie already talked a little bit about this one, but there's actually kind of a diverse set of programs that we provide through under the home ownership bucket. So under new production, there are 277 new home buyers. Those we plan on coming through, one, the construction of new permanently affordable for sale homes that would be available to folks 80% AMI and below, as well as through down payment assistance. So not necessarily building a new building, but just helping a lower income first time home buyer get the money they need for that sometimes pretty chunky down payment so that they can get in and just start owning. And then under the homeowner stabilization services, we again have a couple of things that we're talking about there. First, there are home repair grants. So these would be funds that we grant out to low-income homeowners to effectuate kind of like emergency repairs, like a tree falls on your roof or your hot water heater goes out in the winter. And not only do we provide the funds for that, but we actually have staff who will go out and work one-on-one with those households, consult, and sometimes they even do a little bit of the work themselves. It's kind of interesting. And then the second part of the homeowner stabilization services portion of the program is foreclosure prevention. So as I'm sure you can all understand, particularly if you're a lower income homeowner, it can be kind of easy to get a little sideways on your mortgage. And so that program is intended to find those folks and help them get the money that they need so that they can continue to live in the home that they own. All right. And then our last actual like program service bucket here is prevention and stabilization. And that refers to homelessness prevention and housing stabilization. So like I mentioned, you get kind of a lot of bang for your buck with this program. So even though it's just quote unquote $30 million, we anticipate we'll be able to help about 4,500 households through this program. Now, we know already at this point that this program is going to go through some changes with the 2023 levy should it be authorized. Currently in the program, there is a an eviction prevention element that helps people pay on the rent just to avoid eviction. And then there's also a rapid rehousing portion of the program that can actually help people who are already experiencing homelessness just with some money to get over something that may have been preventing them from getting housed. Maybe they got some arrears, or they just need help with first months, things like that. So while it's fairly likely that we will continue with programs similar to those two, we also know that we're going to add a resident services program. So similar to how I mentioned in permanent supportive housing, there's staff around to help people with their daily needs. We're thinking that it would be good if there was some similar support even in buildings that are not permanent supportive housing. So even what we've found is that even in buildings that are not formally permanent supportive housing, you find a lot of the same people in them, and they end up needing a lot of the same support in order to remain housed. So we're looking at ways that we can help provide some services in even non-permanent supportive housing buildings. And again, all intended to help people stay in that unit so that the unit is being used for its intended purpose for as long as possible. All right, and then kind of the last chunk of money to talk about here is just the program administration. The levy is easily the most stable source of funds that we have at the Office of Housing. We don't even actually get admin support out of a lot of the funds that we work with. So the levy really does kind of power the engine of the Office of Housing. It pays our salaries, and that includes the people who are doing all the assessments of these applications and deciding who to fund, as well as the folks who go out to these places to actually make sure that they are performing as they agreed to. So it's very important. And on top of that, it pays for everything else that we need in the office, our rent, our light bills, all of the fees for software and stuff like that. The city doesn't just cover that for us. We actually have to pay it out of our own money. So in addition to that, this year, council has made some amendments already. If not formally, they're about to, that are going to actually allow us to use some of our administrative monies for things more like housing development. So, it's always been our custom to take any money that we had around and do whatever we could in order to put it to productive purpose. And now we're getting kind of some extra authorization to do that. So there's actually some language that is probably going to come out that's going to allow us to use some admin funds to actually help kind of new or smaller developers like build up capacity so that they can become bigger and more effective developers one day. So we're excited about these kinds of new opportunities to support that kind of work. Right. Now, this last slide is just one that we like to throw in because it really is the perfect example of what we try to accomplish with the kinds of support that we provide. So the building you're looking at right here, it's actually two projects in one. One of them is a permanent supportive housing project called Patricia K, and the other one is what's called a workforce housing building called Jackson Heights. Workforce just means that it's intended to serve people who are still low income but working, and usually with a little more income than, say, people who live in permanent supportive housing. So it's located in the Central District, and the way it came to be is, you'll see the gentleman on the left there. His name is Chris Zala. He is the executive director of an agency called Community House Mental Health that has worked for a very long time, primarily with people who have developmental disabilities. And he had kind of a low density, kind of older building that he was working out of there. And he was thinking, this is a very centrally located plot of land. It's clear it's very valuable. Its value has increased tremendously since we've been here. I want to keep providing services here, but I'm having trouble just finding workers who can afford to live near to where we work. And he wanted to see if he could do both on one site. So he started working with, I believe it was Ally Community Development, and they figured out how they could put together these two projects in this place. So it is both serving people with those lowest incomes and highest needs, as well as workers, his own workers on this site. In addition to that, on the ground floor, if you see the gentleman on the right there, his name is Terrell Jackson. He's the proprietor of Catfish Corner, which is a restaurant that serves typically Black African-American cuisine. And they got that nice corner unit there in the Central District. And in addition to that, there's a child care center in that building. So, you know, we try to incentivize people who are coming to us for funding to look for these kinds of partnerships wherever they're building, to talk to the community and see what it is they want in their building. And if they can work out some kind of deal where they're going to host a clinic or a childcare center or what have you, that raises their profile in our eyes. And that's always what we seek to fund. And then again, with some of the language that we're seeing in the legislation that's working its way through council, there appears to be some additional encouragement for us to look for and fund projects like that. So we're looking forward to having that, again, extra push, extra authorization to prioritize those kinds of things instead of just looking at unit count. As important as that is, we want to make sure that these buildings are not just, you know, big boxes with houses in them, although obviously we need lots of those, but that they also serve the community and help bring that community together by bringing to life the things that they want in their neighborhood. And so those are all the slides that we've brought with us today. And provided there's time left, I think we're happy to take some questions. I must have put everyone to sleep.
Could you put in the chat, I saw that you had an exclusion for seniors or people on disabilities. Could you put in the chat how folks could, who to contact if folks want to look into getting that exemption?
I'll get that stuff.
Oh, okay. So that is through King County. So the link that Nathan's going to share will be to King County. And I think they have information in multiple languages. I want to say English, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Russian, Somali, Vietnamese. So they've got quite a lot of information there.
Thanks to a tweak in state law this last session, they're actually slightly raising the income threshold for that program.
Just, I guess, by way of giving you the latest update here, and Nathan kind of alluded to this as well. The City Council has been meeting and considering this proposal and considering potential amendments to it over the past couple months or so. There will be a committee meeting tomorrow. It'll be the select committee for the 2023 Housing Levy, where I believe we anticipate they will be considering any final amendment language, and then could be up for a vote by full council as early as next week. And so if that passes, if the housing levy proposal passes as an ordinance, then it will be sent to King County elections and become a ballot measure in November. So on the November 7th general election ballot is when we anticipate, assuming all goes well with council and is signed by the mayor, that you will see this housing levy proposal on the ballot.
Well, thanks so much. That was a really good presentation. Very informative. I did not know that Oh, Rita had a question. She wants your contact information.
Sure, I can put mine in the chat, and I'm sure Nathan can share his as well.
Can we also get a copy of your PowerPoint in case anybody couldn't attend and wanted a copy?
Sure. I'll take care of that tomorrow morning, if that's okay.
That's fine, thank you.
Yeah.
Maria?
I just really want to commend the focus on the extremely low income, the 30% and below. That really gives me hope that we're focusing on those who are really needy. I think some of us have gotten jaded when we see the word affordable, because it does not necessarily cover the population that we're trying to advocate for. So just pass on kudos to Michael and to the mayor.
We'll do that. Thanks for that comment.
Yeah, one thing I failed to mention when we were going through the program slides, but that was on a couple of the slides actually, is that 60% of the funding combined between the rental production and preservation program and the operating maintenance and services program has to go to those lowest income households, the 0 to 30% AMI. And just speaking kind of generally of the various fund sources that we work with here, the levy more than others is really focused on serving those lower income households. And again, that's kind of because it is the most stable, and we know that's where the greatest need is, that we want to make sure that that's getting covered.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining our meeting today and presenting. That was a lot of really helpful information.
Thank you for the time.
It's a pleasure. All right.
All right, and I think we're nearing the end of our meeting. We have appreciations and adjourn and coming events. There will be this weekend the Beacon Hill Market thing happening at El Centro de la Raza. I can put some information in the chat about that. That's coming up. Anything else coming up?
Our June 27 for the Red Apple Visioning. We hope that folks come to it, because it's what they told us they wanted.
I'm going to put in the chat where to RSVP on the Eventbrite.
That'd be great, as well as the Zoom link.
Okay.
I just clicked the link for your Eventbrite and it said that the page or event wasn't found.
Wow. I just had somebody click in and do an RSVP. Thanks.
Maybe I didn't do the whole thing. Let's try again.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me know.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, the hyperlink didn't do the whole thing.
Okay, sorry about that.
I'm glad you tested it though. Hope to see you there. It'd be great to get to meet people, and it's been a while. We have not been together in person, so I'm just looking forward to it, you know.
Great. Yeah, it works now. Thanks.
Oh, good.
Okay. Okay, and here's the info about the street fairs. You can find it on Beacon Hill Arts website. They also have a garden share too. So if you need to share and receive plant seeds, gardening supplies, or books, they'll have it there at the station. Okay, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
So we'll ask the Beacon Hill Council board members to stay on, and then the rest of you can go enjoy the rest of your evening. It's still nice outside. It's still light outside, so get out there and get your last bit of sunshine.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Rita.